Hey, hello, welcome to another season of Royals Sports Beat Live. This is our weekly conversation about all things Kansas City Royals with the writers who cover the team and with you. Please send us your questions and comments. I'm Blair Kirchhoff, columnist Vahe Gregorian and Sam McDowell are with us. Beat writer Lynn Worthy will often be with us, but he can't today. He is, as we speak, trying to listen to Zack Grienke. He's in Surprise, and Zack Grienke is meeting with the media here, and Lynn is in the middle of that. So, good morning, guys. How we doing?
Doing great, Blair. Great to see you in this context. And Sam, you're okay. Good to see you too.
Yeah, I think we've all seen enough of Sam lately.
I'm digging your background, Blair.
Yeah. How about that? The pictures are hung. They've been sitting in a bedroom closet for about 6 months, and we finally got them up last night. Those are the two covers for the commemorative editions after the parades that the Royals, of course, in 2015, and the Chiefs in 2020 after winning the Super Bowl. So yeah. I'd like to think that and say that I did it all myself. The fact is, my wife Karen did most of it, and I helped measure. That was my contribution to the picture hanging.
Hey, measuring's a talent too, Blair.
let's go with that. Let's believe that. Okay. All right, you guys. We're going to talk Royals, and my gosh, there was going to be plenty to talk about anyway with the season returning, right? And we'll get to that in a moment. The delay of the baseball season, but yesterday, a couple of moves to bolster the pitching staff. The big one, of course, is the signing of Zack Grienke, old friend Zack Grienke. And of course, there's the trade that brought Amir Garrett to the Royals and sent Mike Minor to the Cincinnati Reds. But we got to start with Zack Grienke, and Sam McDowell. You penned a column about this move, and I like your approach that about what it says for the Royals' plans here. Let's get into that a little bit. What did the Royals accomplish with the signing of Zack Grienke?
Well, I mean, I think they got a guy that's going to fit in, and like I mentioned, closer to the top of the rotation than the bottom. I mean, I think you can look at this a few ways. First of all, it's a great story, considering that he started his career here, of course, and demanded out because the Royals were rebuilding. He didn't want to be part of that, and I believe he told that just to Bob Dutton, former Kansas City Star Royals beat writer. And so, I mean, I think it's compelling, considering obviously he went through the social anxiety disorder here as well, or diagnosed when he was here, and now that part's come full circle. So I think that's one way you can look at it, and that's a great way to look at it. But from the Royals' perspective, like I mentioned in the story, you don't pay $13 million just for the sentimentality of that story. It leads me to believe that they think they're ready to win now. And that doesn't mean that they believe that they're a complete package that's going to go out and win the World Series in 2022. But it does mean that they think they can compete this year. And so I think Greinke offers them a good piece. I mean, I think we all thought because of the way he pitches, he would pitch as late into his career as he wanted to play, basically. He's not a guy that relied on velocity, even when he had velocity. But also, it's for when you've got a young staff, you need a guy that's been there, done that. And Zack Greinke's that guy.
Could he be the James Shield of the staff, Vahe?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting way to look at it, and I think I agree totally with what Sam said, and I think part of that is that it resets the rotation. It makes a little bit of a statement, I think, to the team as well as to fans. It's not a some crazy signing, right? I mean, it's a big investment, but it's not 3 years, $80 million to somebody, but it's about kind of the runway to this next dimension of the Royals, or this next resurgence of the Royals, as we see it trending and would like to believe it will go. And I think it's just a really nice, solid piece. I keep thinking it reorders the rotation. What will be interesting to me to see, of course, will be how much of his impact on the room around him is simply by example, or how interactive he is. One thing I'm a little unclear on is whether, to what degree he really is a guy that's talking to people in the room. I don't fully have a grasp of how his temperament works in the clubhouse. And you guys, Blair, you might have a recollection of that, or Sam, you might have a better sense of it from yesterday, but I don't know that component of it yet. I do think, though, that we correctly take Dayton more at his word when he's thinking about how somebody will fit in there, and wanting them to be a great teammate. And we can talk about how that's going to be with Amir Garrett too. But I don't think this move would have been made if they didn't feel like that had a broader reach.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that while they might fit in the rotation similarly, when you talk about James Shields and Zack Grienke, they've got a lot different in personality. I mean, I think Buddy Bell, when Zack Grienke was here, and a rookie and a young player said he's not capable of lying even when he should. That he's sort of brutally honest with teammates about stuff. I think it was Mark Tehan that said in a Rustin Dodd and Jason Jenks story that he'd made a couple errors and didn't have a hit one day, and Krinke just came up to him and said, "You had a really bad game today." And there's a bunch of stories like that with Zack Grienke. And in fact, I'd encourage people to go read that piece I referenced. But he's got a lot different personality. And I don't think that means he's not going to interact with his teammates. He's not going to help his teammates. But it's not going to be this motivational rah-rah guy that, I remember when James Shields came here, Danny Duffy said, he was like, "Are you ready to be an ace now? Are you ready to be the guy?" And that's not Zack Greinke's personality. He's 38. I mean, he's been in major league clubhouses for almost 2 decades now. So I'm sure he's a different guy than when he left the Royals. But I just don't think that guy is what, that rah-rah leader sort of guy.
I think that's a good distinction, Sam, the way you make it. But I also feel like this is our Seinfeld moment here, where it makes me think of Kramer telling George Costanza's girlfriend she's pretty, she just needs a nose job. I think he's that kind of blunt, right? He's just got to spit it out.
My favorite Zack Greinke story was the one that involved Alex Gordon. Gordon early in his career was scuffling at the plate, and Greinke offered to take him into the film room and show him some things, and Alex was pretty excited about that. He's gonna, Greinke's gonna show him, just what to look for, what pitchers might be thinking, and what Greinke showed him was a clip of Greinke hitting a home run and telling Alex Gordon, "This is how you do it."
Greinke said it's not that hard. It's not that hard.
Exactly. So as Sam alluded, 1-year deal for $13 million with incentives. Last year with the Astros, Greinke was 11-6 with a 4.16 ERA. He is a 6-time Gold Glove winner. He is a great fielder at his position. He's 38 years old. So it's funny. He left Kansas City, and as Sam said, famously was just disappointed with the direction of the organization. And at the time that he left, the organization was at in the very early stages of becoming what it was going to become. And the trade of Zack Grienke to the Milwaukee Brewers was basically one of the key moments of the rebuild or the building process of the Royals that brought Lorenzo Cain and Alcides Escobar and pitcher Jake Odorizzi to Kansas City, and then the Royals turned around and flipped Odorizzi to Tampa Bay and brought James Shield and Wade Davis. So, just the Greinke trade was one of the great ones for the Royals in its history, and they were in a World Series, and 3 years later. So Greinke pitched for the Brewers, the Dodgers, the Diamondbacks, and the Astros. Pitched in 2 World Series. Has not won a World Series yet, but has made plenty of postseason appearances. How about he's not the opening day starter, is he?
Yeah, I wonder that. I listened back to Dayton Moore's press conference yesterday with reporters in Surprise, Arizona, and he wasn't asked that specifically, but that was one of the questions I had whenever they traded for Zack Greinke. Could he be the opening day guy? Do they stick with Brad Keller? I think that's probably the direction we thought they were going before they made this trade. But when you look at his last 3 years, which, just for the age sake of him being 38 and people probably wondering what does Zack Greinke have left, last year he started 29 games and he was only credited with 6 losses. The teams that he's pitched for are 42 and 32 in his last 3 years. I mean, the Royals will take that. I mean, you can pay $13 million for a guy that wins 4 out of every 7 times out. It's a pretty good percentage in baseball. So, like I mentioned, I think when you looked at his stuff, he pitches more than he throws, and he's always been that way. And he's a guy that tries to figure out what hitters are doing, tries to figure out the way their bats go through the zone. So I think that his mind works when he pitches really well, and that's something that's just gonna, like I said, lend itself to him being able to perform well, even if he's throwing 88 instead of 98.
I like your point, Sam, and I think it remains to be seen whether he'll be the opening day starter. But I kind of wonder if it works a few different ways here. That Brad Keller would seem to be the other best candidate, but I wonder if by putting Zack Greinke in that position, which in a way is cosmetic, in a way is psychological, you take a little bit off of Brad Keller's plate and not relegate him. It's not like that, but maybe he could be more effective in a role where he's not thinking of himself as having to be the guy or the workhorse guy. I don't know. I'm just kind of speculating on that. I think it's a question they'll be asking themselves, though. The other thing you made me think of, Blair, I hadn't thought about it this way, but Sam McDowell and I were talking a little bit about this yesterday, and we were talking about that trade. But we didn't talk about this part. At the time, I'm sure Royals fans and the Royals themselves were frustrated about needing to trade him. But the flip side of that is that would the Royals have won the World Series without that trade? I'm not sure they would have. I'm not sure they wouldn't have. But those 2 guys were pretty pivotal in it, as was the acquisition of James Shields, priming the pump.
Yeah, I don't think – I mean, I think we can say pretty certainly that they would not have won the World Series unless they made that trade with Zack Greinke. But good trade for the players still. I mean, it's not like Zack Greinke would have been on that team because of the guys they acquired. And I don't think the Royals. I don't think Zack Greinke. I guess what I'm trying to say is that he missed out on winning the World Series by demanding a trade, because it doesn't happen, I think, with him leaving. And by the way, he pitched in postseasons, like Blair mentioned. I mean, when his career moved on, he pitched in postseasons immediately for the Milwaukee Brewers. And then, he was in the World Series last year with the Astros. So, I mean, his career has certainly not been absent of pitching in big games.
Yeah, postseason for every team he played for, except for the Royals. So he has absolutely been
with the Angels,
winning.
With the Angels too.
Oh, Brewers with Brewers, Dodgers, D-backs, and the Astros.
I didn't even remember the Diamondbacks made it that year. He pitched for them, or pitched for
him. So he has 2,809 career strikeouts. He would take a pretty massive effort on his part to get to 3,000 in this season. Can't say impossible, but if he this is a 1-year deal, I can see him coming back in 2023 and maybe becoming a 3,000 strikeout guy. He spent more years of all the teams that he's played for. He has spent more years with the Royals than anybody else. Has more victories, more innings pitched um, with the Royals than any other team that he's played for. So, and he's just going to add to those totals this year. In 2009, he had one of maybe the greatest season by a Royal starting pitcher when he won the Cy Young Award for a team that typical of the Royals at the time, just floundered, and the only guy you really could depend on was Zack Grienke that year. And I can remember going to the stadium covering games, and fans would have these Zack. Zack is spelled with a K and then with a dash, and then K's for all the strikeouts that he had in that game. So Zack K or whatever it was. So it'll be interesting to have him here, fun to have him here. But again, like I said earlier, not the only pitching acquisition that the Royals had this week. The trade that brought Amir Garrett here from the Cincinnati Reds sent Mike Minor to Cincinnati, and the Royals are traded a starter for a reliever here, bolstered their bullpen with the 6'5" Amir Garrett, who had he's had 5 major league seasons. In the first 4, he improved every year, and then he gets to last year, and the numbers weren't there for him, so he regressed a little bit in his 5th season. But what do we think about this trade? The finances are such that trading Minor is basically allowed the Royals to get the Zack Greinke thing done, and they pick up a reliever and send away a starter. Is this a net profit for the Royals?
I feel like it is, Blair, and it's funny that we can take this all in kind of one serving here with these two guys together, right? You can make a little case it's a bit of fire and ice from their personalities and what that will bring, and maybe we don't want to overthink the clubhouse impact, but certainly Amir has shown himself to be a passionate player, and as you noted, having that arc of his career kind of all of a sudden, level off, or in fact, appear to recede. That's not a long-term matter. It's can we fix this kind of thing, and can we just reset? And I do think sometimes just a change of scenery can help make that happen. I mean, that's not really a very deep analysis, but I think that's the thought. The Royals have had some success with resurrecting some pitchers' careers or resetting it, to put it another way. And I think you have to feel better about what this particular Royals team looks like based on yesterday's work.
I mean, their starting rotation and their bullpen got better yesterday with the combined 2 moves. And I always think, when you add a guy that could potentially slot in a late inning, you improve in every inning before it too. So now, if you view Amir Garrett as a guy that could throw the 8th, you're better off in the 7th and the 6th than you were before too. When you add a pitcher that you think might be your number 1 or your 2, suddenly your 3, 4, and 5 look a lot better than they did yesterday too. So it's a bit of a confusing move from the Reds' perspective, but from the Royals' perspective, I think you have to look at it in tandem with a guy to Zack Greinke as well.
I think that's a good point, Sam, because if Garrett becomes, I don't know, an 8th or a 7th inning pitcher, that you got Josh Stallmont moving, maybe moving down, Jake Brentz, it does affect the rest of the bullpen that way. I think that's a good point. One thing I love about him, he was a terrific prospect in basketball. Was a 4-star recruit in hoops, and ended up committing to St. John's out of high school. Didn't work out for him there, so he transferred to Cal State Northridge, was going to play, and basically by then he throwing the ball so hard he decided to pursue the baseball path. But kind of looking forward to talking a little college hoops with him when we get into the clubhouse, which we will this year get into the clubhouse. Happy to say. Before we get off the topic of pitching, Kerry asks, he noticed on the hot stove rumor mill yesterday that the Royals were inquiring about a trade for Frankie Montas, with the starting pitcher for the Oakland Athletics. Frankie had a heck of a season last year, and does the Grienke signing kind of remove that from the equation, or will the Royals be looking for another starter? Sam, what do you think? Is that are the Royals set now with the rotation?
Yeah, I mean, I look at the rotation, and I mean, it's too bad Len's not here, because he's going to be more plugged in on this than probably the three of us. But I look at the rotation and think that they've got 3 spots now open for their younger guys. When you look at Brady Singer and Bubic and Jackson Kowar, I mean, you've got 3 spots open for those young guys, and so I personally think that if the Royals are going to make a move, it makes more sense to see what you have and then potentially make that sort of move in season. If young guys are pitching well, if they have good spring trainings in these next few weeks when games get started, then you don't really want to block those guys. So, like I said, it'd be great to have Len here, because I'm sure he's plugged into exactly what the Royals are thinking, but that's just my perspective on it.
I'd only add that I think that we've been feeling like the future is in these young arms. The Royals have felt that way. I think adding Greinke, feeling like you solidified the top of the rotation, gives that more room to breathe. And I do think if they're going to make a run in these next couple years, those younger guys are going to figure to be a big piece of it, and they want them to have the chance to be a bigger piece of it. I suppose at midseason, if they feel like something's not going right, they'll really look to add rotation arms. And I'm not sure that they won't still try to add depth and just sort of see what they've got, move pieces around. But I would think that that's not the priority exactly. But kind of just guessing, not really with the lay of the land, as I'll have later today once I get the surprise. And then I'll know everything.
Yeah, we should do this again later tonight, just to pass on all the knowledge that you picked up. You will have picked up today. Yeah, look, the rotation. You mentioned a few guys, Sam. There's also Carlos Hernandez and Daniel Lynch and Heasley. I mean, they're gonna. It's a short spring training, but it's going to be an interesting one, at least to see how it shakes out with the rotation. All right, I want to get to just the fact that they're playing baseball again, and to introduce that idea, we've got a clip from spring training, maybe the first or second day the players were there. Monty's got it queued up, and we're going to hear what Whit Merrifield and Salvador Perez had to say about being back in Surprise, Arizona.
I just kind of kept doing the same thing. To be honest with you, it was kind of like 2020. I mentioned it a couple times when people have asked, and it's not an ideal situation, but fortunately we had something similar in 2020 where we're just kind of waiting to hear. So I've always said spring training is too long anyway. Yeah. So this will be a good test to that. I think that's a point of emphasis, at least from talking to him this morning, of us sort of being the ones to, I guess, set the tone, not rely on coaching staff or whoever come in and do that. And that's not getting guys in a circle and giving a speech every day. That's how we go about our business and the way we carry ourselves and our expectations day in, day out. So we got to do a better job of doing it amongst ourselves and not relying on Mike to do it. And we can, and we will.
What do you do with the lockout and everything being delayed a little bit?
Personally, I just got to be ready, prepare myself. Something that I could not control, and I was ready. You practice every day, kind of sad a little bit when I hear the first, that we're going to cancel a couple games, all that. But, the good thing, we're going to play 162 games, and we're not going to miss any game. So happy to be back here, and can't wait for the start of the season. I was super happy. I was at home with my wife, and start to pack everything. They tell me on Tuesday and Thursday. I almost fly on Friday. It was too quick. And I wait another day. send my car and prepare my luggage, and take the first plane Saturday. So I'm super excited to be back. And I have a new face in here. I told not to skip. And we have some great arm, man. And, in baseball, sometimes I think the bigger percent is about pitching. And we got some great arm in here. And we're in different pace, I think we're getting close. And I always say that I believe in my team. And I think this year we can be better, than last year. And hopefully, make it to the playoff. I think everything in big league want to be in playoff, So we're going to try our best, see what happens after the season over.
Salvi couldn't wait to get here. Wanted to fly to Arizona a day early. His wife said, "No, you stay. You got to stay here." So it's good to hear those guys. It's good to feel 70-degree weather outside. It's just starting to feel like baseball, and it wasn't feeling that way for February and the first part of March. But what we ended up with was an agreement between the players and the owners, and they still got it settled in time to play a schedule, at least 162 game season. I noticed when the Royals released their new schedule yesterday that they've got a couple of scheduled doubleheaders, or at least day night. I don't know if they're going to be the old fashioned doubleheaders that Sam wouldn't know anything about, but Vahe and I remember from our days. But they've got a couple of doubleheaders scheduled, both against the White Sox at Kauffman Stadium, by the way, to get in the 162. So Vahe, I know you wrote about this on the day that the thing was settled. How much are fans going to have very short memories about how angry they were in February and early March?
I suspect so. First, let me make a little bow to the old twilight doubleheader, a term
Yes.
Sam never heard. But what? This is kind of funny, and I don't know if I think Sam McDowell, we were together when the news broke. We were over at the basketball tournament, and I started writing about it. And the way I first got into it was sort of setting up the point that I'm still mad. And then the more I wrote, the more I realized I'm really not that mad. I just am ready for baseball. And I showed Sam McDowell that the tentative headline I was going to write, like, baseball's back and we can't help but, not be angry anymore. And Sam looked at me and goes, "If that's what you want to write." But it really kind of dissolved as I was typing. Dogs don't agree. And that to me, it may or may not have any application to how fans look at it. Tomorrow's going to be the first spring training game. A family I happened to be in contact with that was in limbo when this was going on is, in fact, going to be in Surprise. They're going to be at the game. I'm going to see if I can't get with them there and sort of measure how this has played out for them. So it'll be interesting. I mean, it's an individual thing. Sam McDowell is probably furious. That's just his nature, always angry. But we'll see. I'll let him speak for himself.
I appreciate it. I don't know if I can top the words you had for me. I personally think that baseball would have been in trouble if they had missed games more than a week or so. And I think it's more because there's the fans like us that have watched baseball for so long that were upset about the way things were going, and those fans will come back. I think if your reason, for not watching is anger, I don't think that's going to be a reason people stop watching baseball. I worried about the people that were already on the fence, and let's face it, it's a younger generation of baseball that no longer watches the games at the rate that my generation did. And so I worried that they would just lose interest in the game. And then by the time the game picked up, they realized they could live without baseball. So I don't think that the lockout stretched far enough to where that's as great a concern as I feared it might be. So I do think you could still see some less interest than you've had, past year and past 5 years. But I think that's more about the stuff that baseball didn't address in the CBA rather than, the fact that they endured a lockout.
Well, and Whit Merrifield says, "Hey, great. Spring training's too long anyway for the for the players from a player's perspective." He's probably right about that. But what a you know, think of the tourist millions that pour into the Phoenix area and all of Florida for spring training, and everybody just just loves the idea of spring training. I'll say this: I can remember. I remember vividly the other work stoppages in baseball where season time games were lost in a season, and of course there was nothing more dramatic than the 1994 um, conclusion of the season in August. So no postseason baseball that year, and I know how that hurt people in a pretty deep way. And I also believe that when we talk about baseball as a regional sport and not the national sport that it was, that was the beginning of it. When people started, you know, couldn't believe that baseball could walk away from its fans like it did in 1994 and cancel the World Series, all the playoffs in the World Series, and there were, I know personally know several people that just said they're done with baseball, and they haven't come back, and certainly not in the way they were attached to the game before that '94 strike. So, bravo to baseball for getting it done. I think both sides felt like they had enough of a victory to feel good about where they, to be where they are, and all it did was push the start of the season a little bit more into April. So the Royals season opener, will be on April 7th at Kauffman Stadium against the Cleveland Guardians. It's going to take a while to get used to hearing that. The Cleveland Guardians and the Washington Commanders in the NFL will take me a little while, but there it is. Okay, guys, that's a show, and it was great catching up with Sam McDowell and Vahe Gregorian. And big thanks to our producer, Monty Davis. So, listen, we'll be coming at you weekly when the season starts. Absolutely every week. We're still working out a schedule for those dates, and you'll be hearing from us again before the season. So, until then, thank you for your questions and comments, and we'll talk to you again soon.